Hello, hello. Good
Hello.
afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Banner and Backbone's Powerful Voices. It's been a little while since I've had the chance to come on and do this show. I'm Nick Perro, and I'm joined by my incredibly good friend and one of the most powerful voices out there. And
Mm.
congratulations to her to add on to the heaps of congratulations of being blocked by Michael Wolff accidentally or somehow is the muckraker supreme, Ellie Leonard. Welcome, my friend,
Hi,
and
thank you.
congratulations on your new job too. I hear
Oh, thank
you
you.
are a new contributor over at Blue Amp Media,
I
and
am.
they seem to be picking up some incredibly awesome people. Um, I see all these amazing voices and people on Blue Amp Media, and it's so wonderful. Um,
I'm having
so
some severe FOMO because I'm not done at my full-time job until the 23rd, and so I'm like not full steam ahead with them until that day. And man, they are right out of the starting gate making some big progress, and I'm just like, oh, I'm coming, guys.
I am so excited for when you start like full time
Yeah.
with or being able to be a full time writer and not have to worry about outside
Hmm.
work that is not what you
Yeah.
love. Um, and I saw that you changed your
Yes, I
your
rebranded.
publication name and you
Yes.
rebranded. So I'm proud to say I am now the friend of the panicked paid writer, but not paid in the name, but the panicked
Panic
writer
writer. The
who is
cynic
no
writer.
longer unpaid at
No
writing.
longer
So
unpaid.
it's so great to see you, Ellie. I'm so
Great to
glad
see you
to have
too.
you on. It's been a
Happy
busy,
to be here.
busy couple weeks.
A
Um,
bit.
and we've had some really good stories and information come out from around things that are going on in Venezuela and the Caribbean and
Yes.
stuff on that. However, Ellie, you have been studiously and relentlessly compiling and chronologically organizing or
Yes.
chronologizing. I don't know what that word
I don't
is.
know. What's the word? Right.
You're putting them in chronological order. There we
Yeah.
go.
They're in
Well, I'll
order.
say it.
They're in order
Yes.
by date.
Yeah, they're in daytime order from
Yes.
ascending. They're in descending and or ascending order, whichever one
Yes.
you want. Um, she's compiled basically all of them, and we keep seeing all these emails getting dropped on Substack, and Ellie's putting
It's my
commentary,
favorites.
and you're putting really good, like simple commentary and
Yeah.
information and context about them.
Right.
And I wanted to discuss some of the emails and things that you
Yeah.
found most important in
Mhm.
some of these latest dumps, because there is a lot and it can be really overwhelming.
It can be. And I think part of the reason why I do, I mean, part of it is because I'm up really late at night and I'm still piecing through these files that were dumped on the 12th, and I am almost done going through them, and I'm trying madly to get through them before the next pile comes through, because I don't use AI. But I think also it's a good reminder as I'm like dropping these little significant or funny or very weird emails from strange people and just leaving little comments about them. It's a good reminder that those are the things that are missed when we do use AI and we scan these things and we summarize them. We would never see any of these. And so yes, it does take a long time. Yes, I am taking forever to go through them, but I'm looking at all the emails and I'm finding things that go together. I'm finding storylines. I'm putting all like it's meant to be really messy and complicated, and so they've literally just dumped everything. It's as if you had a stack of papers and you just threw it on the floor. Nothing is in order. The people's emails are separated. So if you have Steve Bannon talking to Epstein here, you may not see another email to him for another 1,000, 2,000 pages. And it may be a date that came before the first email. Like everything's out of order. And so I've just gone through and I've created documents for each individual conversation and put them in chronological order so people can read, Michael Wolff or Steve Bannon or Ehud Barak or Kathy Rumler or anybody who's in his wheelhouse, Larry Summers, and get some context about who this person is. And then just start to read their really, really, really wild conversations that they never thought would be public And so that's been really fun, actually. I've really enjoyed it. It's a lot of work. And I'm really, really hoping that in this next batch, we get even more of it, because there are definite gaps in the emails that I know that there's something goes there. They didn't just stop talking to somebody for 18 months and then pick it up right where they left off. I know there are more emails, but I'm also hoping we're going to get a big, big pile of emails from Ghislaine Maxwell, which would be really magnificent for me personally. I would like to just rip those apart and make them public, and start pulling out the people who are involved that nobody's talking about. That's my goal.
That's incredible. And there was a question in the chat. It's sort of, I feel like it's almost sarcastic in the question, or rhetorical, and it's from my friend Evan Fields of, don't they have staffers that could have done that for the public? That's an important part of transparency.
Don't you think that?
You'd
Don't
think.
you think those 1,000 FBI agents that went through to retract Donald Trump's name could have organized and done anything else while they were looking through them? Don't you think that when they dropped them, right? Or don't you think that when they put them in a Google Drive for America to read through, that they could have put them in a giant PDF that we could have just opened instead of individually scanning every page as a single picture document, so that we have to open it, close it, go to the next one, open it, close it? They made it purposely very complicated because they want people to use AI to scan it. They don't want people going through and reading these emails. I will dump all these emails. This week, I finished all the Michael Wolff emails, and Michael Wolff has been the golden boy of the Epstein case. People have really looked up to him. They've really looked up to his writing. But these emails really, really took a notch out of his, hero-dom. That is not a word, but it really changed a lot of people's stardom. Yes, thank you. It really changed people's views and his intent behind talking to Epstein this whole time. And it led to me being blocked by him this week, which I found very interesting, because I literally don't correspond with Michael Wolff on any level. I have asked him a couple questions in his DMs over a long period of time. And then this week, somebody gave me his phone number, and I sent him a very simple, very polite question via text message. He didn't answer, of course. But that's it. I don't hound him. I don't comment on his posts. I really leave the guy alone. And then I found out that he had blocked me, and I thought, interesting. And then other people on my Substack have been sort of hounding him about why he's blocked me. And I'm not involved. I'm just sort of observing from afar. And so they're out there asking, why are you blocking her? What are you doing? And his reasoning is he doesn't even know who I am. He doesn't, what does it matter? He doesn't know who I am, which I think is a pretty lame response, because you don't block someone if you have no idea who they are. You block them for a reason. And the only reason I can think that he would be blocking me is because I'm posting all of his emails and he doesn't want to see them. It just keeps them off his feed, basically, because if they're getting a lot of hits, people are liking them, clicking them, sharing them. It doesn't matter if he subscribes to me or not. He's going to start seeing them, and he doesn't want to see them. So my guess is that's why he blocked me. But I found it really funny, because I was telling Nick off air, I have never had such a positive response in my comments for anything I've ever done in my life that I've tried hard to do before. I didn't do anything here, and I had hundreds of people congratulating me for getting blocked by Michael Wolff. And it was, it's very uplifting. I felt very good about it.
Yeah, and I see there's a comment in our chat on Substack here that said Michael Wolff knows he's no angel, but we have benefited greatly from his revelations. Sure, we have benefited greatly from some revelations, but he could have spoken up a lot fucking sooner. You don't hold on
and
to you don't hold on to this information like that, and you don't become chummy the way that these emails read and the friendship that is there. That's not.
If you really read through it, there's I'm pulling together a piece on Michael Wolff and kind of the history. He's known Epstein. He met Epstein in around 2001. So he flew on his plane. He went to a TED Talk with him. He's known the guy a long time. He didn't start interviewing him until after it was well known that he was a sex offender and he went to jail for prostituting minors. Everything was public knowledge and everything was pretty known in that circle. He was not a fan of Me Too. Michael Wolff often Like that was things that they commiserated on, was Me Too. They hated it. They thought it was taking down all of their friends. Like it just got to a point where Michael Wolff so wanted to take down Donald Trump that he sided with Jeffrey Epstein in order to get that information. So he wasn't interviewing Jeffrey Epstein to tell the story of Jeffrey Epstein. He could care less about the story of Jeffrey Epstein. He was doing it to tell the story of Donald Trump because he wanted to take down Donald Trump. That was his whole ultimate goal. And in order to do that, he had to choose a side. And so he chose Epstein. And his, yes, he's gathered all this information, but you have to understand, he has said over and over again that he has 100 hours of interviews. He has exactly, I think, like 6.5 minutes of them are public. You think 100 hours is 600 minutes. He's released 1% of the interviews. And that was through like the Daily Beast. He doesn't want to release that. And his reasoning for not releasing the interviews is America doesn't want to see that side of Epstein. Like they'll side with him and think he's a great guy, kind of a thing. And in not so many words. He thinks that it's not what America wants to see and hear, meaning he thinks the things that Epstein says are very relatable and we'll start to like him. Well, give us the chance. Give us the chance to determine that for ourselves. Like, obviously, his argument that nobody wants those interviews and he can't get them published anywhere is a little bit of a moot point at this point, because maybe that was true at one point, but he could give those interviews to any publication now and they would absolutely take them 100%, no questions asked. And so he's making the decision to hold on to them for what I don't know. And my text message, what I asked him was, would it ever be an option for you to just drop them in a Google Drive just the way that the House Oversight Committee has done with the Epstein files? Is that ever something you've thought about doing? And that was it. That's all I asked. I'm assuming he saw it. My phone number is probably now blocked as well. But that would be, especially after what happened on the 12th, and especially after his, the hit to his reputation, that would have been the time to do that. Like, stop thinking about
immediately
a contract and just buck up and drop those files, because, no matter what is on them, they are something. They're not nothing, right? Every bit of information is important at this point. And he's talked about everything that Epstein has said to him without handing us the recording. He has talked about things that Epstein has said in those recordings, and they are vital. And so unless the DOJ is in possession of them, he has no reason to hang on to them at this point, unless he's really, really holding out for money, which is gross. I mean, let's be honest, that's pretty gross at this point. Like, this is for the protection of minor children. Drop those, like, let go of them.
Yeah, and that's really the big part. This is for protecting children and for now women and men who were abused as children or very young adults. Like, Michael Wolff isn't doing this for our benefit. Like, he doesn't get to be the arbiter of, like Evan said, who made him arbiter of truth. Like, who gets to make Michael Wolff the arbiter of, are we ready to see this information, or should it be in the public sphere? Is it what he has said and done and recorded? If he really wanted to take down Donald Trump and not just make money, he would have released like that. If he really, to me anyways, if I wanted to take something down and I got 100 hours of blackmail on that person, I would fucking put it out. Like, here you go.
He's like, oh, I don't want to get sued. And I was like, don't you? Because you just got threatened to be sued and you raised almost $1 million. Like, I don't think he cares about getting sued. And his reasoning for not releasing them, because he thinks we'll be disappointed because they're not as damning as we thought they were. Fine. Like, fine. That's okay. Just release. That's 100 hours and all the interviews with Steve Bannon. Like, release the interviews. Like, we will never have too much information to solve this case and to ultimately create a very, very, very public consequence for the people involved, so that this doesn't happen again. So we hold people accountable, so that future billionaires with ultimate power know that they can't get away with this. That's why we're doing it. I mean, half the people in these files are dead and will have no consequence. but half of them are alive. And we need to show that if you even think about doing something like this again, the level of consequence that will be brought down upon you is heavy. And every little last piece of information that we can use to do that matters, because there's a next generation of children and a next generation of children, and this doesn't end. This has never had a beginning, and it doesn't have an end, but at least we can make a change for the better.
And it can, I mean, it can have an ending point. We can make it so that
Right.
there should be an ending point. Like we can go towards
There
one,
should
like you
be.
just said. We can point in the right direction. And if we only get
Right.
90% of the perpetrators held accountable,
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather hold 90% of them
Yeah,
accountable
it's a
than
big
none of
deal.
them. Like that's 90% less
Yeah.
of these unaccountable
Right.
predators hurting children, hurting
Also,
like
people just need to know that power is not unchecked. There's
yeah.
a lot of people who feel that they could get away with all sorts of things, not just this type of thing, but other things, because of the amount of money they make, because of their prestige and their power and the people they're involved with. Like Jeffrey Epstein, I put him on a level with Donald Trump, but he was much more intelligent than Donald Trump. He was savvy. Donald Trump is not savvy by any means. And so he was able to convince people with just enough information that he knew something about whatever it was that they did. If they were in global finance, if they were in academia, if it was like Noam Chomsky, if they were, he's hanging out with Woody Allen all the time and it has to do with film. He read a lot, and he would read enough to understand the thing that they talked about enough to hold a conversation with them. And he was very good, and he had a lot of charisma that he could convince people that he was skilled in the thing that they did. And that's what he did. That's what he spent his time doing, was convincing people all the time. And so he had a lot of influence, and there are people now to this day still doing that type of thing. And like I said, I just needed there to be a very visible consequence for this, so that people don't have the ability to have ultimate power anymore.
Good. I'm glad you are making this your mission,
Mhm.
basically, in
Yeah.
life. So let's get into some of the other than just Michael Wolff is some of the
Mhm.
other, and I put up your, for anyone who wants to scan it too, please do, is the QR code to Ellie's um, article on Michael Wolff's emails is in the top right hand corner of the screen. So go ahead, scan that. I'll include it in the show notes too, so it's linked to that. But what out of the other emails, like what originally I had titled this show was the Bannon emails, because at that time when we
Yeah.
had first started to talk about that, that was when the Bannon emails had
Mhm.
really first dumped. Maybe we go back into those a little bit for a
Sure.
minute and see, like, pick up what out of those did you find, or what did you find most important out of the Bannon emails, and
Mhm.
were there any like new revelations or new connections that you were able to put together from some of those conversations?
I think with the Bannon emails, it was more of like taking a step back and looking at the psychology of Jeffrey Epstein and his dynamics with different people. Like I said, how he could be a chameleon and speak to different people in different ways. With Steve Bannon was the first, at least in these emails, he was the first person who was really felt like a close friend, and not because of financial means. It was a little bit because of political means. I mean, I think originally Epstein got close to him because of his like political prowess while he was still involved in the White House, and then he got kicked out of the White House, and then that became, they would commiserate over their dislike of Donald Trump, and then that's where he started sort of dumping his opinions about Donald Trump. So a lot of that is in the Bannon emails, but the dynamic really shifts over time. At first Epstein has the upper hand. He's someone that Bannon, I think, thought was connected to intelligence, which is not unlikely. And Bannon always wanted to work for the CIA. He wanted to go back in, and he wanted to work in the White House and work in intelligence. So I think he assumed that his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein would help in that way. Um, and then it sort of shifts because Bannon, once he has gotten out of the White House, he becomes like a political advisor of his own right and starts traveling all over the world and meeting with powerful people. And that is something that Jeffrey Epstein has always loved to do. But at this point, it's kind of gearing towards the end of his life, and he's becoming more isolated, and he's less able to go out and do these bigger things because his reputation is really sinking. He's aware that he's under surveillance from the FBI. They start using coded language in their emails. And Bannon is aware of the whole thing. He knows the charges against Epstein. He knows his history. And then he starts to make it his mission to help Epstein clear his image. And it wasn't, after the fact, Bannon has talked about these interviews that he had with Epstein. He has 15 hours of interviews. He's made it look like he was really wanting to document Epstein for like a documentary after the fact about, the bad things and the bad choices that he made. It really wasn't. He was trying to re-enter Jeffrey Epstein into society in a major way. And so he was interviewing him. They were trying to clean up the internet of all of his history. So he was paying thousands and thousands of dollars to have people remove all of his like legal history from the internet and just talk about philanthropy and like the big powerful things that he had done, which is very interesting in itself. But it was really this image-driven relationship between the two of them that really lasted until the very last day. I don't know if they emailed after he went to jail, but they emailed constantly, day and night. And he was emailing him all the way back from Paris on his plane, landing in Teterboro Airport. They're making plans about going to dinner or going to breakfast or something. And then the last thing is Epstein says, everything's off, cancel everything. And then that's it. And that was when he was arrested. So he knew flying into the airport, he was going to get arrested right then. And so it's very eerie. It's a very eerie ending to their email thread. And then it just sort of stops. I don't assume that it's done. I assume there are more emails that I'm going to come across in this next, load of files. But I also hope it's not just emails in this next set. I hope we start to get like videos and interviews and surveillance and some of this more like digital evidence. Obviously, they're going to redact and protect anything that involves victims, but they're going to have, I would hope they're going to have a lot of the digital evidence that shows where he was, what he was doing, who he was with, name names, start to pull out these depositions, which is what they unsealed this week. And so those will be out soon. But the depositions are very, very important. The depositions, any sort of unsealing is when you start to see the damning evidence against people like Ehud Barak, potentially Alan Dershowitz, people who have been named, but then had enough powerful legal teams to get them out of it. You will start to see situations where they can't get out of it. And I hope all that stuff comes to light.
So thinking about Ehud Barak, can you give your thoughts on what just happened this past week with the New York Times DealBook Summit, where they platformed Ehud Barak? And what was your response to that beforehand? And what is your response going forward? Since, obviously the public pressure that we tried to put on them didn't end up changing their mind, but I had an impact in a lot of ways. What did you do ahead of time? And what are you planning to do now that it's happened to help continue to put truth out so that people like him aren't platformed by events?
So I have worked as a subcontractor for the New York Times for over 10 years. And I worked at the DealBook since 2017. And that meant every year when they'd hold their conference, which is the biggest names in business and entertainment. It's CEOs, it's the Kardashians, it's Prince Harry, it's like Kamala Harris. It's the biggest people of the biggest people in the room speaking to a bunch of very wealthy business owners and CEOs. It's a vacuum. And so I have transcribed all the panels every year so that they can then go off and write articles about the panels. And then I went to it once in 2023. There was potential that I was going to be at it again this year. But they always wait sort of till the last minute to announce who's in the lineup, just because they're really big names and they don't, for safety, they don't want to have a lot of lead up. And when I looked at the list, I was really excited. I messaged Andrew Ross Sorkin, who is the organizer of the event. He and I have chatted several times, and I was just like, I'm looking forward to the list this year. And then when it came out, I saw that Ehud Barak was on the list, and he's the former prime minister of Israel. Now, I understand that the Gaza-Israeli conflict is a major player. It's a major conversation. It needs to be had. Obviously that's going to be part of this conference, and I think that's very important. But I also think there's a lot of people who could have had that conversation who are not specifically Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak was very, very close with Jeffrey Epstein. He spent a lot of time with him. He stayed at all of his properties. He flew on all of his planes. Very, very close friends for many years, which was an interesting choice by the New York Times. If that was just the thing, that would be an interesting choice. They would be playing with fire with that alone. But that was not the only thing. In Virginia Giuffre's book, who, I assume most of us know who she is by now, but she was one of the most vocal victims of Jeffrey Epstein. She passed away last year, but she wrote a book that was published in October. She talks about the well-known prime minister. Now, Jeffrey Epstein hung out with two prime ministers. He hung out with Ehud Barak frequently, and he had one short meeting with Tony Blair, and then they never really spoke or did anything ever again. Those were the only two prime ministers. In her book, she describes a well-known prime minister as being the most violent encounter she ever experienced, again, as a minor. He choked her unconscious. He would wait for her to wake up, choked her unconscious again, obviously raped her profusely, and she was left, I believe, with broken ribs. She couldn't swallow. She had trouble breathing. I mean, really, really, really violent. And beyond the assumption, I mean, I don't know who else we think she's describing, but beyond the assumption that we know that it's Ehud Barak, I also have sources who know Virginia Giuffre, and I've asked them, is Ehud Barak the well-known prime minister? And they were like, yeah, of course he is. He's the well-known prime minister. So I knew that. I also know that the New York Times has much more access to information than I do, many more sources than I do. So they know this. They have that information, and yet they still invited him to speak. They still gave him a platform. That was obviously shocking to me. And I had to make the decision of like, what do I say? What do? I work for these people. Like, do I burn that bridge, right? So I wrote to Andrew, and I tried to be as polite as possible. But I said, this is shocking. This is shocking to me that you would make this decision on a conversation that needs to happen, but like, specifically, why this person? Like, are you trying to drum up bad press because all press is good press? I don't know what you're doing. And he's very thorough. Normally he calls and he'll have a long conversation on the phone, and he just wrote back and he goes, I hear you and I understand your thought process, or something like that. Very short, very snipped. And I was just like, it was like a gut punch personally. And I didn't really know what to do with it. So I just started like writing about it online. I made a TikTok about it. I just started posting this information anywhere that I could figure it out. And then I contacted Daniel Littman from Politico, and I asked him a question about it, and he's like, that's really, really interesting. Can you tell me more? And so we started talking about it, and he ended up putting it in his newsletter, which was very small, but it was not nothing. I mean, it's Politico, and he reached out to them for comment. And the interesting thing with that too is the person interviewing Ehud Barak, and it wasn't with an audience. It was just a one-on-one that they recorded, and they posted snippets to their podcast, but most of it isn't even going to be documented to the public. It's a private conversation for the New York Times, which I find a little interesting. But
so can you explain what that would mean? Because I understand like private conversations and holding on stuff, but like in terms of this type of interview, What would that mean in the long term? Is this something that would eventually come out as an interview or a public conversation, or is this all off the record for possible like
I don't think
sourcing?
it's, I think it's for sourcing. I think they will use it moving forward because Andrew Ross Sorkin has his DealBook newsletter that he writes every single day. And I think they will use bits and pieces for that. But there are snippets of the interview that you can see, and I've posted one of those. But it's very strange because it was a panel. There were several people speaking, but they didn't. It's without an audience, and it doesn't go on their DealBook podcast other than if they reference it. So it's very strange. I'm not totally certain of the purpose of it, but it is one of their moderated panels that they have at the conference. And so, but what's part of the confusion for me was he was being moderated by Nick Kristof. Now, Nick Kristof he did or does work in the opinion section at the New York Times. He's a big proponent of Dylan Farrow, who is Woody Allen's daughter. And when she came forward and she wrote her op-ed about what her dad had done to her, the New York Times wouldn't publish it. They refused to publish it. And so he gave her a spot in his blog in the opinion section to post her article because she didn't have any other place to put it. And then the New York Times gave Woody Allen a 2,000 word rebuttal. Of course, he got, front page in the opinion section. So it was very confusing to me because Nick Kristof is a very big proponent about protecting children from sexual abuse. Like he's always been really great about that. He was very supportive of her as a child, as she was fighting through this, as she needed a voice. And so I didn't really understand the motive behind being the person to interview Ehud Barak, because the only thing that I saw that was questioned about Epstein was a very softball question. And I can only say what I would have done, but if I was somebody like Nick Kristof in those shoes, I would have really drilled him on those questions. But there's also the point that these people know what questions you're going to ask, and their team says what you're allowed to ask and what you're not allowed to ask. But it's just the whole thing was really frustrating and really confusing. I was not called to work for the DealBook this year for the first time in many, many years. Not a big surprise. However, the woman who normally has me work for her, who has no control over any of the decision making, she congratulated me on my job at Blue Amp. So like she's fine. The people who work there are fine, but the decision makers at the top are so enmeshed and so entangled in this story, because if you look back in the beginning and you think about Jeffrey Epstein, when all this started and he was at the Dalton School and he was like called in to work at Bear Stearns with no skills, he was also invited at that point by A.G. Sulzberger, or whoever it was, Punch Sulzberger, they all have weird names, who owned the New York Times. He wanted to pull him out of Dalton to come work at the New York Times. Like, why? What, for what? And so he has been connected with the New York Times since the Dalton School in the 70s. And now A.G. Sulzberger, who is Punch's grandson, I believe, is now the owner of the New York Times. So it's like there's it's a very tangled web. And it is not corrupt. And so, yeah, so that's basically it. Like I was a little bit worried about my name going into a story that included Ehud Barak. I didn't know, like, protection wise, if that would be iffy, but it was a very small, it was a very small article, and I think things are fine. But that was something that I felt like I couldn't sit on. It's like one of those things where do I hurt my job and say something, or do I not say something and keep working there? But it's like an ethical thing, and it's like I have to sleep at night thing, and I don't need the New York Times to validate my ability as a writer and a contributor and whatever. And so I went for it, and I don't know what it changed, but it changed. I hope at least Andrew Ross Sorkin's view on me, and that I won't stay quiet if I know that there's something going on. I won't do it. And so that's,
I
yeah,
think
that's the
that's really
story.
important. I think it's
Yeah.
really important that you did that. It shows a lot of courage that you did that,
Thank you.
and that you are continuing to do that. And I stand by you. I know you don't need me to tell you that it takes courage to do it and that you're going to do it anyway. But I'm going to be here to help platform your voice and get your voice out there wherever I can. I'm so glad that Blue Ant Media has picked you up and is going to help elevate and amplify your voice as well, because you have a lot of really important things to say, and what you are saying, you stood up, like you just said, you stood up for ethical and moral values when it mattered the most, instead of holding on to something and going, oh, I don't know if I want to say that because it's scary. Is you said, even though it's scary, I'm still going to say the thing that's important and right. And that's a good model for our kids. That's a good model for the rest of us as journalists, and as independent creators. Is you have to make sure you say the right things at the right times, and you don't hold on to things when you don't need to. Just because there's going to be fear, there are those of us around that are here to stand with you. And we don't need legacy media telling us we can't write something or you shouldn't write something. Is Ellie's going to write it. Ellie's going to write the truth. Ellie's going to write it. Ellie's going to listen to the recording of it and go, well, that's not what that's not what actually was said. And here's the real recording, and here's the real transcript. And it just takes courage from everyday citizens and just everyday people like Ellie to come out and go, well, here's all these emails. I put them in a simple format so everybody can read them, and here's what I figured out. And this thread that goes through all of them. Like, I think we should all take heart in what you're doing, Ellie. I know I do, and I'm glad I get to talk with you and platform you. And I'm so glad I met you and reached out to you that one time a couple months ago with Fred, and was just like, hey, come on, I really want to talk to you about Epstein.
Like 2 months ago.
Oh, I lost you there.
Yeah, time goes so fast because it just feels like when.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like we've been doing this for years.
Yeah, it's only been it's only been like 3 months that, like, we've talked. I think 3 or 4 months that we've talked about this.
I've only been writing about Epstein since July, so like, but it's just, this has been a very very fast and furious time for sure.
Yeah, it's been a lot, and I'm sort of wrapping up our conversation because Ellie told me she has a time limit today, and I want to respect her time so that she's got the ability to do everything she needs to in life, and whatever's going on for her. So one of the big
basketball practice.
That's just as important, because your kids are just as important as all of this, and having them see that you're able to, like, do all of this and then still be a major part of their life is really important. And so to help you continue to be a major part of their life and to grow yourself, and I know you have some really cool experiences that you are just now coming into with Blue Ant Media and the introduction of some of your rebranding. Is we now have just the Panic Writer with us, Ellie Leonard. So
Just the Panic
sell
Writer.
yourself, my friend, and tell everybody where they can find you and how they can support your work as you continue to grow and put out all this really powerful truth. Oh.
Sure. So as Nick said, I rebranded to the Panicked Writer. It was a kind of a mouthful to say the Panicked Unpaid Writer, but I'm really grateful to not be unpaid anymore. Making a little bit of money on here and working with Blue Amp, which is funny because when you connect with somebody, you connect with all their followers. So it like blew up my follower count. So my follower count is still, down with the plebes. But you can find me on most social media. I have it all under Red Pencil Script, which is my work handle, but I don't know. I don't really know how to change that there. So not to be complicated, but I'm on most social media sites.
That's awesome. And for everyone who is in the audience, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button in the top left corner. That gets all three of us. But go subscribe to Ellie. Go become a free or paid subscriber with her.
Thanks, guys.
Paid really, really helps because it puts food on the table. It ensures that she's able to continue doing all of this work independent of anybody else too. So give her these subs and help her continue to grow, because I want to hear more of Ellie. And I also like having conversations with her, so it's a bit selfish of me.
Yeah, they're fun.
So keep boosting Ellie so that I can hang out with her more and that she has time, because it's fun to talk to Ellie.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
fun.
we
We have
do.
fun.
Even on hard subjects, we're able
Yeah.
to make them less stinging sometimes and more easy to consume,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's really tough. This is not an easy
for sure.
topic to discuss. Um,
It's not, but then you have, I mean, as I said before, it's so complicated. It involves so many things. So there is a humorous side to it, and I think in these emails we've gotten to see that a little bit. That there's a little bit of humor in people like Larry Summers, who is the president of Harvard, asking Jeffrey Epstein, "Do you think she's gonna call me?"
yeah, like
Like the
teenage
most
boy,
annoying.
annoying thing ever.
or or Epstein going like, we really need to start thinking about the warrior psychopath, because they're really, the psychopath is the person who's gonna like change the world. Like
I read that one.
there's a humorous side. I know, I was like, I bet you believe that. There's a humorous side in the middle of kind of the dark nature of this story, and it's okay to
Yeah,
recognize that, you know, we're digging through some pretty
yeah.
dark
We have to
stuff.
have some graveyard humor in all of this too, and find the joy in the
Hmm.
least joyful things, because that'll get us through. So come support Ellie.
Yep.
Come support the Panicked Writer. Um,
Thanks. Support
and then
Nick.
come support me here over at Banner and Backbone, help the network grow, and help us put more of this out, so that we can get more powerful voices, have more episodes with Ellie, help me have a food on the table and pay my kid, or get
Mhm.
Christmas presents and feed the
And the
dogs.
dog.
I
Feed the
actually
dog.
just got a sweater for one of my dogs, so he's kind of pissed off at me. He's been under my legs the
Aw.
entire show, just
Oh.
standing there like, are you going to take this thing off of me? Are you going to take this thing off of me? I don't like this
Hmm.
sweater. It's
Nope.
Argyle. I don't like this. He has a blue sweater. It's so cute.
That's so
Um,
funny. This is
he
nicer than I do.
dresses nicer than I do. I have a Power Ranger shirt on today, so he dresses nicer than I do.
I have a Queens General
Uh,
Store.
so yeah, come support Banner and Backbone, and then also support me at Sick of This Shit Publications, independent of Banner and Backbone, where I do all my other work, and community building. But the big one today, my good friend Ellie, and then Banner and Backbone. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you, Ellie, for spending this time with me, and coming on.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you again and seeing all of the great work that's about to come out. Also, remember, Ellie's going to be busy as shit starting next week, when the Epstein files are supposed to be fully released. I have a
Yeah.
feeling we won't see Ellie's face on live, other than
If I go dark, I'm
she'll be
working.
putting
I
out
promise you.
files and emails and work up the wazoo, but I don't know
Yeah.
if we'll see Ellie's face for about a month or two. Uh, so come hang
We'll
out
see what
with us
happens.
when you can. This has been
Yeah.
Powerful Voices on Banner and Backbone. I'm Nick Perro, joined by my really good friend here, Ellie Leonard. I hope you have a great day, Ellie. Everyone in the audience, all 300 of you, thanks for
You too.
joining us. Share,
Yep.
subscribe, restack this when it comes out, and get the word out so everybody knows what's going on. And support these powerful voices pushing back against the pedophiles and the disgusting human beings who are trying to take over our country and run our lives. So, Ellie, take care. Enjoy basketball practice. You too.
Have a good night. All right. We'll
Bye,
see you later.
everyone.
Bye.